The richest man in the village had everything except kindness, and one day, the entire village decided he could no longer live among them.
In a quiet village far away, there lived many families who loved and cared for one another. The village was not very big, but it was always full of life and happiness, because the people believed that when one person had a problem, everyone should come together to help. When someone was sick, the neighbors would bring food and water to the house, and when someone was building a new hut, the men and women in the village would gather and work together until the house was finished. Because of this spirit of kindness and unity, the village was a peaceful place where people lived like one big family. Among the people who lived in that village was a very rich man. He had a large house with many rooms, big bags of food stored inside his storehouse, and many animals like goats and cows that walked around his compound. Anyone who passed by his house could easily see that he had more wealth than many other people in the village, and some visitors who came from far away even admired how rich he was. But even though the rich man had many good things, he did not have a good heart toward others. While other people in the village were always ready to share what little they had, the rich man kept everything for himself and never wanted to help anyone, not even his own family members. His brothers, sisters, cousins, and other relatives lived in the same village, and sometimes they faced difficult times when they needed food or small help. But whenever they went to his house to ask for assistance, he would always find a way to send them away without giving them anything. At first, the family members thought that maybe the rich man was having his own problems, so they did not complain too much about his behavior. But as time passed, it became clear to everyone that the rich man simply did not care about anyone except himself. Even when he had plenty of food in his house and many animals in his compound, he still refused to share with those who were struggling. Because the village believed strongly in helping one another like a family, many people began to notice that the rich man was living very differently from the rest of them, and slowly the villagers started talking among themselves about his strange and selfish behavior. Some people wondered why a man who had so much could refuse to help the people who were closest to him. And this question slowly began to trouble the hearts of many people in the village. And as the days continued to pass, the rich man's behavior did not change at all, and the villagers began to feel that something needed to be done about the way he was treating his own family and the community around him. As the days continued to pass in the peaceful village, the rich man's behavior became more and more clear to everyone. Early every morning, he would wake up in his big house and walk proudly around his compound, looking at his many goats and cows as they moved slowly on the grass. He had a large storehouse filled with bags of yam, rice, and maize, and he always locked the door carefully because he did not want anyone to take even a small part of what he had. In the same village, many of his relatives were living simple lives. Some of them worked very hard on small farms, and sometimes the rain did not fall well, so their crops did not grow as expected. When such hard times came, it was normal in the village for family members to support each other so that no one would sleep hungry. Because the rich man had plenty of food and animals, many of his relatives believed that he would surely help them when they needed support. One afternoon, one of his cousins walked slowly to the rich man's compound. The cousin looked tired because he had been working on his small farm since morning, but the harvest from his farm had been very poor that season. When he reached the rich man's house, he greeted him respectfully and politely explained that his family had very little food left at home, and he asked if the rich man could kindly help him with a small bag of maize. The rich man listened without showing any kindness on his face, and after hearing the request, he shook his head slowly and told his cousin that he had nothing to give. Even though the storehouse behind him was full of food, he said that everything there was for his own use, and that he could not begin giving food to everyone who came to his house. The cousin felt very embarrassed and sad, and he quietly thanked the rich man before walking back home with empty hands. This kind of situation did not happen only once. Another day, one of his sisters came to visit him because her child had fallen sick, and she needed a little money to take the child to a healer in a nearby village. She hoped that her brother would show some love and help her during such a difficult time, but the rich man again refused to help and told her that everyone should solve their own problems. When the sister left the compound, her eyes were full of tears because she could not believe that her own brother could be so hard-hearted. Soon, stories like this began spreading across the village, and many people started hearing how the rich man was refusing to help even his closest family members. In the evenings, when people gathered under the big tree in the center of the village to talk and rest after a long day of work, the villagers began discussing the matter. Some people spoke with sadness, while others spoke with anger, because they felt that a man who had been blessed with so much wealth should not close his heart to the people around him. Little by little, the disappointment of the villagers continued to grow, and many people began to feel that the rich man's selfish behavior was not good for the spirit of unity that had always made their village strong and peaceful. The more they talked about it, the more they felt that something serious needed to be done before the situation became even worse. As the stories about the rich man continued to spread through the village, the hearts of the villagers became heavier each day. The people of the village had always believed that a community should stand together like one family, and that anyone who was blessed with plenty should never close his hands when others were suffering. Because of this belief, many villagers could not understand why the rich man kept refusing to help even the people who shared the same blood with him. One evening, when the sun was slowly going down and the sky was turning orange and red, many villagers gathered under the big tree that stood at the center of the village. This tree had always been the place where people came together to talk about important matters that affected everyone in the community. The elders of the village, who were respected for their wisdom and calm thinking, also came and sat quietly as they listened to what the people had to say. A middle-aged farmer was the first person to speak. He stood up slowly and explained how he had seen the rich man's cousin leave his compound looking very sad after being refused help. He told the elders that it was painful to watch family members suffer, while a man who had plenty continued to live comfortably without caring about anyone else. After him, a woman who lived near the rich man's house also spoke. She explained that she had often seen the rich man's relatives coming to his house with hope on their faces, but they always left looking disappointed and ashamed. She said that the rich man's behavior was beginning to bring sadness into the village because people felt that such selfishness was not the way their community had always lived. The elders listened carefully without interrupting anyone. They understood that the matter was serious because it was not just about the one person being rich or poor, but about the spirit of kindness that had always kept the village united. If people started living only for themselves and stopped caring about others, the peace and love in the village could slowly disappear. One of the oldest elders finally cleared his throat and began to speak slowly in a calm voice that everyone respected. He reminded the villagers that wealth was not a bad thing, and that anyone who worked hard and became successful should be proud of their achievements. However, he also explained that in their village, a person's wealth was expected to bring help and comfort to others, especially to family members who were going through difficult times. Another elder nodded and added that when someone became too selfish and refused to care about the people around them, it could weaken the bond that held the whole village together. He said that the elders and the village committee had the responsibility to protect the unity of the community. One of the elders began the meeting by reminding everyone that the village had always believed in fairness and wisdom. He said that before taking any harsh action, it would be better to first speak directly to the rich man and give him a chance to understand the problem and change his behavior. The other elders slowly nodded their heads because they agreed that a person should always be given an opportunity to correct his mistakes before any serious punishment is decided. After discussing the matter for a long time, the committee decided that they would invite the rich man to come and meet them under the big tree where important village matters were always discussed. A young messenger was sent to the rich man's house to deliver the message that the elders wished to speak with him about something important concerning the well-being of the village. Later that afternoon, the rich man slowly walked toward the meeting place. He looked calm and confident as he approached the elders because he believed that being rich made him an important person in the village. When he arrived, he greeted the elders politely and sat down in front of them, while many villagers quietly watched from a short distance. The oldest elder spoke first, using a gentle and patient voice so that the rich man would clearly understand the message. He explained that the villagers had noticed how the rich man was living in great wealth, while many of his own relatives and neighbors were struggling without help. The elder carefully told him that the village was built on the spirit of caring for one another, and that when someone who had plenty refused to help even the people closest to him, it caused pain in the hearts of the community. Another elder continued speaking and advised the rich man to think carefully about his actions. He told him that kindness and generosity were qualities that made a person truly respected, and that helping others would not make him poorer, but would instead bring him honor and goodwill among the villagers. The elders did not speak with anger or harsh words, because their goal was not to shame the rich man, but to guide him toward becoming a better member of the community. They gently encouraged him to open his heart, support his family members when they were in need, and share some of his blessings with the people who lived around him. After the elders finished speaking, the whole place became very quiet as everyone waited to hear what the rich man would say in response to the advice that had just been given to him. The villagers hoped that he would listen carefully and change his ways so that peace and unity could continue to grow in the village. For a few moments after the elders finished speaking, the whole place remained very quiet. The villagers who were standing nearby watched carefully, hoping that the rich man would understand the wise words that had just been shared with him. Many people believed that if he listened to the elders and decided to change his ways, the problem in the village could easily be solved and everyone could continue living together in peace. The rich man slowly looked around at the elders who were sitting in front of him. Instead of showing respect for their advice, a proud smile slowly appeared on his face. He leaned back slightly and spoke in a voice that sounded strong and confident, but his words carried very little kindness. He began by saying that he had worked very hard to become rich, and that everything he owned belonged only to him. He told the elders that no one had helped him gather his wealth, so he did not see any reason why he should start giving his food, animals, or money to other people who came asking for help. The elders listened quietly as the rich man continued speaking. Instead of thanking them for their advice, he began to speak in a way that sounded disrespectful. He said that people should stop coming to his house with their problems, because everyone should learn to take care of themselves just as he had done. Some of the villagers who were standing nearby felt shocked when they heard the way he was speaking to the elders. In their culture, elders were highly respected, and it was not common for someone to speak to them in such a proud and careless way. One of the elders tried to speak again in a calm voice, reminding the rich man that the meeting was not meant to take anything away from him, but only to guide him toward living peacefully with the rest of the community. The elder gently explained that when a person lives among others, it is important to care about the well-being of the people around them. But the rich man shook his head and refused to listen. He repeated that his wealth was his own business and that the village had no right to tell him how to use it. His words were so firm and stubborn that it became clear to everyone that he had no intention of changing his behavior. When he finished speaking, he stood up without waiting for any further discussion and walked away from the meeting place as if the advice of the elders meant nothing to him. The elders remained seated under the big tree, looking at one another with quiet disappointment. They had hoped that the rich man would listen to their guidance, but his proud and stubborn response showed them that he did not respect the values that the village had always followed. As the rich man walked back to his large house, many villagers slowly returned to their homes, but the feeling in their hearts was no longer the same as before. It was now clear to the elders and the village committee that the problem had become more serious than they had first hoped, and they knew that they would soon have to meet again to decide what should be done next. After the rich man walked away from the meeting and returned to his large house, the elders and the village committee remained seated under the big tree for a long time. The evening breeze moved softly through the leaves above them, but the mood among the elders was heavy and serious. They had hoped that the rich man would listen to their advice and change his behavior, but his proud words had shown them that he did not respect the wisdom of the village. One of the elders slowly spoke after a long moment of silence. He said that it was painful to see someone who had been blessed with so much wealth refusing to care about the people around him. He reminded the others that the strength of the village had always come from unity, kindness, and the willingness of neighbors to support one another during difficult times. Another elder nodded and added that if the rich man continued to live in the village while showing such selfishness and disrespect, it could slowly weaken the spirit of togetherness that had always guided the community. He explained that younger people in the village might begin to think that it was acceptable to behave the same way, and that such behavior could slowly break the strong bond that held the villagers together. The village committee listened carefully as each elder shared his thoughts. Some of them felt sad because they had known the rich man since he was young, and they had hoped that he would grow into a kind and generous person. Others felt disappointed because he had not only refused to help his family members, but had also spoken to the elders in a way that showed little respect. After a long discussion, the elders agreed that the matter could no longer be ignored. They explained that the rules of the village were built on the idea that everyone should contribute to the well-being of the community. When someone chose to live completely for themselves and refused to care about others, it created division and sadness among the people. The committee members began to talk seriously about what action should be taken. They understood that whatever decision they made had to protect the peace and unity of the village. One elder explained that sometimes a difficult decision must be made to remind everyone that the values of kindness and responsibility were important for the survival of the community. As the sky slowly grew darker and the stars began to appear, the elders finally reached an agreement among themselves. They decided that the rich man's behavior had become too harmful for the village, and that if he refused to respect the values of the community, the village would have to take a stronger action to protect its unity. Although the decision was not yet announced to the villagers, the elders knew that the time had come to call another gathering where the final judgment about the rich man would be shared with everyone in the village. The following morning, word spread across the village that an important meeting would take place under the big tree. People left their farms earlier than usual, mothers finished their morning chores quickly, and many villagers walked toward the center of the village because they knew that the elders were going to speak about the problem of the rich man. Before long, a large crowd had gathered under the tree. The elders and the village committee sat together in their usual place, looking calm but very serious. Everyone in the village understood that the decision they were about to hear would be important for the future of their community. After the villagers had settled down, the oldest elder slowly stood up and began to speak. His voice was steady and clear so that everyone could hear him. He reminded the people that the village had always been a place where families helped one another during times of happiness and also during times of difficulty. He explained that this spirit of kindness and unity was the reason why the village had remained peaceful for many years. He then spoke about the rich man and how the elders had already tried to guide him with patience and wisdom. The elder explained that they had invited him to the meeting, spoken to him respectfully, and advised him to change his ways so that he could live peacefully with the rest of the community. However, the rich man had refused to listen and had chosen to continue living only for himself. The elder paused for a moment and looked at the villagers who were listening carefully. Then he announced the final decision of the village committee. He said that because the rich man had refused to respect the values of the community and had chosen selfishness over kindness, the village could no longer allow him to remain among them. The elder declared that the rich man would be asked to leave the village together with all his property and animals. He explained that the decision was not made out of hatred, but out of the need to protect the unity and good values that had always guided the village. When the announcement was finished, the villagers remained quiet for a short moment as they thought about the decision. Soon after, several people nodded their heads slowly because they understood why such a serious step had been taken. Later that day, the rich man was informed about the decision of the village. At first, he could hardly believe what he was hearing, because he had always thought that his wealth made him powerful and untouchable. But when he saw that the whole community stood behind the decision of the elders, he realized that there was nothing he could do to change it. With no other choice left, the rich man began preparing to leave the village with his belongings, his animals, and the wealth that he had always protected so carefully. As he walked away from the place where he had once lived proudly, the village slowly returned to its quiet and peaceful life. From that day on, the people of the village continued to live by the lesson that true wealth is not only found in food, animals, or money, but in the kindness that people show to one another. The villagers always remembered that a person who closes his heart to others may one day find himself standing alone, no matter how rich he may be.